Hey, everybody, this is BJ. Welcome to the Daily Reflection Podcast. The program is the 12 steps, and you're not working the steps right now. So you're not in the program. So when you drink, I want you to know that it wasn't AA that failed you. Call my sponsor. I'm like, Mitchell, you won't believe what just happened. I'm like, some guy called me a bitch and I didn't get angry. And he's like, good, get back to work. Click. I'm like, this guy. But I mean, that was just how the 10 steps saved me from prison. They say, you got to give it away to keep it. And I don't believe that at all. I believe you have to give it away to get it.
Welcome to the Daily Reflection Podcast with your hosts Michael L. and Lee M. On this show, we try to provide inspiration through interviews with members of the recovery community. We are not aligned with any 12-step or recovery programs, but you will hear them mentioned throughout the course of an interview. On today's show, BJ Romero from Sterling, Virginia. Before we get to the show, favor to ask. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, can I ask you to provide us with a rating or a comment? Let us know what you think of the show. It's going to help us improve and expand our reach. Thanks. We hope you enjoy the show. Good morning, Lee. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. I am doing fabulous this morning. How are you?
Fantastic. What do we have on the schedule today?
So today's March 22nd, and in the studio today, we have with us BJ R. from Sterling, Virginia, and he's here to share with us on today's Daily Reflection, which is No More Struggle.
Oh, fantastic. BJ, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from? What's your sobriety date?
So I am originally from New York City, but I reside in Sterling, Virginia. My sobriety date is March 16th, 2013. And a little bit about myself. I mean, I drank, I fell down a lot, and I got arrested a lot. And what happened now is I'm sober and I'm living a life that I don't feel like I deserve sometimes. I love AA and I'm humbled to be here with you guys.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to the show once again. And we start the show in the same way every day. We ask the guests to read the daily reflection for us. Can you get us started?
Yes. It's March 22nd. No more struggle. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. When AA found me, I thought I was in for a struggle and that AA might provide the strength I needed to beat alcohol. Victorious in that fight, who knows what other battles I could win. I would need to be strong, though all my previous experience with life proved that. Today, I do not have to struggle or exert my will. If I take those 12 steps and let my higher power do the real work, my alcohol problem disappears all by itself. My living problems also cease to be struggles. I just have to ask whether acceptance or change is required. It is not my will, but his that needs doing.
I love that reading. There's a lot in there too. BJ, when you came in to the rooms of AA, was it a struggle for you?
To say the least, yes. It was a struggle. I mean, you guys wanted me to do everything opposite from what I think I should have been doing. So 3 months into recovery, I'm working as a dishwasher, learning to be a pizza maker. And I used to be a server, so it was kind of like the story in the Big Book. The guy that was in the selling cars in a place that he once owned. Now I'm washing dishes when I used to serve tables. So I feel like I've gone down, in prestige. So already my ego's not liking it. So I'm cutting vegetables. So if you're a pizza maker, you have to make your own toppings. And I'm like, wasn't there a toppings guy or something, or somebody that could actually do this for me? And the guy that was training me, this is what he said. He said, "Don't be a bitch." I came from the streets of Washington Heights, uptown Manhattan, Tampa, Florida, where we fought, when you said words like that. That's like automatic. And if you don't fight, then you are that thing. So I automatically was like, I put the knife down because I knew that if I fought him with the knife, that would be assault with a deadly weapon, and that's punishable by life. I'm not trying to go back to prison. So I'm like, hey, listen, put the knife down. I'm like, let's go outside and I'll show you, I'll show you your B. And he didn't want to fight me. And instead I got in trouble at work. And the guy that owns the place is in sobriety. So he was like, okay, listen, you can't threaten people. And I'm like, oh, no, it's okay. I wasn't threatening him. I really was gonna fight him. And he's like, no, you can't fight people. I'm like, but he called me a B. He's like, then call him a B back. I'm like, you don't understand. So I go to my home group the next morning because I need to tell them about this wrong, right? And they're like, listen, man, y'all don't understand, blah, 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 such and such happened. And nobody shared on what I just on this atrocity. And they're just like, they're talking about God and all this stuff. I'm like, listen, nobody understands, nobody cares. Okay, AA's not real. AA's not for me. A guy who's my sponsor now, Mitchell, and he was actually on this not too long ago. He pulled me aside. He's like, BJ, we're gonna graduate you to the 10th step. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what that has to do with this, but he's like, what you're gonna do is anytime you're angry, I want you to don't say anything. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be hard in itself. And then I want you to pray and ask God to remove the anger. Then immediately I want you to call me. And if you can't call me because you're on the line cooking or something, text me. Just let me know I'm angry. And then I want you to go and be of service. And if you can be of service to the person who harmed you, even better. And I'm like, I'm not that spiritual, but I'll give it a shot. So 50 times inside 2 weeks, I'm sweeping, I'm cleaning people's drink station, I'm running people's food. And they're like, oh my God, you're so nice. And I'm like, you don't even realize how I want to murder you right now. In my head, of course. But still, I'm like, I'm going back and forth. People are like, oh, you're so nice. You're so nice. And then on the 50th time, I mean, it's 2 weeks later, it's time to cut toppings again. And I'm like, what? I'm like, seriously, you haven't found a topping guy yet? I'm like, come on, man. He's like, do you know who I think I am? And he's like, don't be a bitch. And I'm like, my ears clog, right? I'm like at the top of a mountain clogged and I can't hear. And it's like, I'm like, what's going on? And I look over at him and he's making this antagonistic face, like, come on, let's do it. Let's have the BJ show. Let's get you fired, whatever. And then I realized for the first time in my life what antagonizing means. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's antagonizing me. I'm like, I'm not angry. His word didn't even touch me. I'm like, in my stomach, there's no bubbling, there's no burning. My cheeks aren't on fire. I'm like, I just start laughing and I have the knife in my hand and I look like Chucky. I'm like, ha, 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 ha. So the guy thinks I've cracked and he's like, oh my God. And he looks scared. He went from being like antagonistic to scared. And then I run outside and I call my sponsor. I'm like, Mitchell, you won't believe what just happened. I'm like, some guy called me a bitch and I didn't get angry. And he's like, good, get back to work. Click. I'm like, this guy. But I mean, that was how the 10th step saved me from prison. And I mean, I came here to stop drinking, but that was huge, knowing that the steps could work and the whole, and they can help me from ceasing fighting anyone, kind of just like this, the reading.
Fantastic. And I love how AA permeates your life, and you just walk away becoming such a better person with these principles. And that makes me think, what if everybody had a program? But I'm interested in how else the program has changed you, and how long did it take you to get through the steps? Tell us a little bit about early recovery.
Early recovery, I mean, like, it was hard. When I got sober, I tried going into treatment and I didn't really, in Florida, you just walk into a detox and bam, you're in treatment, done. No questions asked. Here, it's a little harder. They're asking for insurance. They're asking for questions. They're asking more questions that I'm comfortable with answering. So I end up detoxing in my basement. And I saw the girl from the ring, and wearing pink pajamas. I mean, it was scary, and it was really hard. And I hated life. And the detox started on March 9th. My sobriety date is March 16th because I needed a couple things to get me through those days. The most significant things that happened was the first day. I remember it was my ex-wife, my kid's mother. We're really good friends today as a result of AA. But I called her up and I'm like, hey, I'm an alcoholic. She's like, duh. Um, I need you to take me to a meeting and I want you to make sure I get a sponsor. Because I knew how this worked because I've been in AA before, but I wasn't ready to do this whole thing. And she's like, okay, no problem. I'm like, it's a literature meeting, it's a men's meeting. It's at 7:30. It's on Thursday night in Reston. And I'm like, it's a 12 and 12, it's a literature meeting. I'm like, take me there, and make sure I get a sponsor. She's like, okay, no problem. I'm like, but here's the kicker. When you get here, I'm not gonna want to go. She's like, what? I'm like, just trust me. I'm not gonna want to go. Don't listen to anything I say. Just get me in the car. And she did. God bless that woman. It's been a freaking ride. They ask me, I say yes, unless I can't do it for some reason that it's just I can't do it. Not because I'm laid up. I said yes to everything. Yes to AA always, and my life has gotten so good. One story that I love to tell that I know it's going to sound unbelievable. It was unbelievable to me. It was what solidified my belief in God in AA. So I was at a Matt Talbot retreat. I'm sure you guys have heard of him before. And over here in West Virginia, and I was about 35 days sober. And I copped a really nice resentment a few times because everybody's disrespected me, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And I meditated, and then I go into this adoration box where you sit for 15 minutes in quiet. I went in there and I just sat there and I just started bawling and bawling, and I was like, God, look, I made a deal with him. I did my own style of a third step in a way, where I was like, listen, I'm willing to do anything you ask me to do. If you want me to hang out with these AA guys, keep them in my life. If not, get them out of here because they're pissing me off. If you want me to continue with the steps, make it happen. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm here because I know that you're real, and I know you've been there all the time. And then all of a sudden, I just start feeling this electric. And I'm like, oh my God, you were there. And then all those seconds and inches, all those times where the gunshot went up instead of through my head, all the times I could have died and I didn't. I realized that God's hand was there. And I'm like, oh my God, you were there every time. And I'm talking to him like a normal person at this point. And then my eyes are closed. I'm on my knees. And then I say it for the first time in my life. And I mean it. I'm like, oh my God, I believe in you. And then when I said that, the roof of the place, the adoration box, it opened up. Still in my mind, it opened up, and I could see through, and I could see clouds, and I could see God, my higher power, in the clouds looking at me. And when he looked at me, his skin was the color of opal. It was like shimmery. It was changing colors. He had like a big white beard, and he looked at me, and I knew the way he looked at me, it was like the way a father looks at his son when he loves him and he's worried about him, and he really, really loves him. And he's like, he just knew that I was in so much pain. I'm like, ah. And he looked at me, and then he started bringing his finger down, and his hand with his finger pointed down, and it was coming right to my head. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, and every time I said, I believe in you, just the feeling of electricity got strong. I'm like, oh my God, I do believe in you. And then it just became realer. And then when his finger touched my head, immediate, like a wash, like all the garbage that's been in my head just washed. I mean, like I did so much, I harmed so many people in my life. And it was like, God was like, I love you. I knew right then and there that he loved me, and that he forgave me, and let's go. Let's do this AA thing. And I came out of there like a firehouse dog. I mean, I will sponsor the devil if he came into this meeting today. It does not matter. That's how I feel about AA. I will do anything for this program. And that did not come from me, because I'm a selfish, self-centered, me still. But for some reason, AA, I am in love with it, and I'm in love with anybody who wants to do it, that's kind of a little bit about, my first couple months.
Wow. That reminds me of Bill W. in his hospital room and just that top of the mountain experience. And, we don't hear these all the time. And what a beautiful experience and how changed you are. I mean, I'm listening to you describe the tough guy that you were when you first came in, from New York prison, ready to beat someone up in the parking lot for calling you a name. And now you're crying openly and connected to your higher power, and to us here sharing today. It's just a beautiful thing how this program changes us. And I'm wondering though, what made you, as tough as you were, what made you willing to even go on a Matt Talbot retreat?
I've tried AA before, and I really did give it a try at 19, and I was able to stay dry for 3 years. When I went back out, I said I'd come back when it got bad enough. It took 8 years for me to be like, okay, it got bad. I mean, I went to prison, but the biggest thing was when my son was born and I was headed to jail again, and I was going to leave my son. I can't even stay sober for 2 days, 1 day, 30 minutes just to take care of my son. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. My goal was just to get straightened up for a couple months so I can, get my fighting weight back. As soon as I sobered up, I was shot through with willingness. Like, I don't know. I can't say that I went out and picked it up at Walmart. It literally was given to me. All I did was show up. I was white knuckling for real. Like, my knuckles were white. Like, I was, oh, but the willingness came, and it's the gift of desperation. I mean, like, but my scorecard read 0. My bank account read 0. My license, my points in my license let me know that I had no license anymore. So that was a 0. I mean, like, everything, no job, nobody, no friends, everybody ran away. So everything was, I mean, there was only one way. And that made me willing enough to do whatever, because there was, yeah.
I mean, it's the 10-step promises come to life. Even talking about the miracle, it's just amazing. How do you work with others? What's your program look like today?
So today it's the same as it was at first. I was more militant. What I did before is I would put them on 10, 11, and 12 from the start. They were to bring big books to meetings. They would pick up the chairs, put the chairs away, show up early, leave late, make coffee. Like, they would just do stuff, give rides. But today I've been practicing a little bit more, allowing, people to be who they are, because I was getting really stressed out about, like, forcing people to do the steps the way they are aligned in the book. If I sponsor you and you want what I have, you'll do what I do. And if you don't, I let people know. I'm like, look, you might be in a fellowship, you're killing it in the fellowship, buddy, but the program is the 12 steps, and you're not working the steps right now. So you're not in the program. So when you drink, I want you to know that it wasn't AA that failed you. You just weren't in the program. So when you're ready to go into the program, we are here, arms wide open. I just want you to know that, and I tell them that because they are going back. They are on the way out. I don't care if you're like, oh, you don't know when people are going out. If you're an alcoholic and you do not work the steps, I know for a fact that I get so insane that I have to drink or kill myself. You're listening to this today, I'm like, and I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. That's our disease. If you're not an alcoholic, you could just stop drinking one day at a time and be like, woo, one day at a time, I don't have to drink. That is not me. I'm the real deal, real McCoy. I will die or kill myself. So today I still have that. I go to meetings, I find a new guy, and I just go up to him and I say, hey, I'll be your temporary sponsor until you find one. Or if I have my sponsees with me, I punch him in the rib and I say, go get that new guy. And if they go talk to the girl instead, I give them shit about it, but that's pretty much what my program looks like. Just going and trying to help the new guy. Yeah, with the guys, I do grab whatever new guy. I don't care where he is. I grab him and I attempt to sponsor him. My success rate is 100% when they do it, and it's still 100% when they don't, because I haven't drank yet. But four out of 100 probably stick and stay. I don't know. They're just not ready. It's a lot of stuff, man, that we do. We're not just hanging out. We do a lot of work.
Yeah, well, the book tells us no human power can relieve us of our alcoholism. So until we're ready, we're not ready, I guess. Until we're ready, we're probably going to drink again. So I love how you're working that. In the daily reflection, it says, if I take those 12 steps and let my higher power do the real work, my alcohol problem disappears all by itself. My living problems also cease to be struggles. So I'm wondering, have you encountered living problems? Have you had some tough times in sobriety, and how do you work through those today?
Oh my God, have I? So back to the restaurant. I'm making $8 an hour. I'm about 4 or 5 months sober. Maybe working for 2 months. I got a bank account at PNC. My sponsor's like, run your credit report. We got to start paying some of these people back. And I'm like, I don't really need to look for them because they're calling me, right? Whatever I had to tell them, we all, we've been there. Some of us have been there, some of us have not, but not everybody's story is the same. But yeah, so I got some creditors coming after me. And I'm like, okay, my sponsor's like, we got to make these amends, and just pick up the first one and just start doing it. I'm like, to get the best deal you can. So, the lady calls me, I'm on my break. We work out a deal, and it came out to $20 a month. And I'm like, okay, well, just give me a call in 2 weeks and I'll have that for you. And she's like, no. We want the first payment today if you want to get these payments of $20 a month. And I'm like, she's a saleswoman. I realize that now, but I'm like, okay. I look up in the sky and I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea, dude. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, I have $30 in bank, right? There's $30 in my bank account, and this lady wants 20. That $30 is supposed to last me a week. I have to get my cigarettes, body wash, maybe some Wrigley's gum, and I'm good. But now if they take the $20, I only have enough for a pack of cigarettes, and that's it. So I'm like, I look up in the sky. I'm like, dude, this is not a good idea. I hope you know what you're doing. I'm talking to God. I'm like, screw it, let's do it. And I say, I get right before I was about to hang up on her, but I gave her the last digit of my account number. And what happened was another spiritual experience. I mean, I'm hit with a trunk full of spiritual experiences over here. I immediately feel the feeling of financial insecurity just dissolve like Alka-Seltzer, just gone. And then what happened was the World Bank opened up to me. I have $10 in my account, and all of a sudden I know for a fact that my kids are always going to have food. I know for a fact that I'm always going to have somewhere to live. I know for a fact that I'm always going to be okay financially. And I have $10 in my bank account. So God infused me with the belief, all you have to do is pay the creditors and you'll be okay. Just pay everyone back. Don't worry about where it's coming from. So I started paying everybody back. 2 years from that date, I was closing on a condo. I mean, my credit score was 300. And because I freaking paid and I paid and I paid and I paid and I worked and I got a better job. And every time I paid more amends, I would get a better job. And every time I paid more amends, I would get a better job and I would make more money, and I was able to pay more amends. God made it possible because I couldn't rent because they don't really rent to felons. You don't want a felon that's robbed a few people and burglarized some houses living in your house. Let's be honest. God put me in a position so I could get that place, but the only way that was going to happen was if I paid the amends, made the amends, did what I was supposed to do, and that has revolutionized everything. I mean, like, my credit is good today. I don't have to worry about stealing today. I mean, I still lie, cheat, and steal because I'm an alcoholic. I mean, that's going to happen. I'm not rendered white as snow whatsoever. I'm going to lie, cheat, and steal just like the rest of us. But it's at a corporate level nowadays. So that's kind of that's one of the. I mean, I mean, we come in here, financially, sexually, emotionally, spiritually wounded creatures. And a lot of that stuff it's not running my life like it was. Like, like sex is not running my life like it was today. And that's a result of this program and outside help. Anger is not running my life anymore. And that's a result of this program and outside help. Like I believe that, I use AA, but I also use, like it says, sometimes we have to seek out, professionals, spiritual help, all this stuff. So like I invite all of it to whatever it takes to get me to the next level of freedom from these handicaps. Really, they took me for a ride. Like the money and sex are pretty much the ones that are really the worst ones. With this program and with outside help and with working with others, that's what saves my bacon every time. If I can do if I do my 11th step every day, and I attempt to try to work with somebody every day, and I 10 step whenever anything crops up, it's like I'm on a beach and like I'm kicking back. I might be busting my butt working. I might be helping somebody move. I might be working with a newcomer. I might be in detox for 4 hours or at the hospital, or I might be, hanging out with my girlfriend, going on vacation, whatever, but I'm always okay. I mean, like I'm going through a divorce. I'm okay. I lost my job. I'm okay. Like that's what AA does for me. It doesn't change me into somebody that's better or worse than anybody else, but it allows me to go through all of the calamity that life has, being okay. And also all the things, all the great events, I can feel them even better. And, it's okay. I hope that makes sense.
It's inspiration on tap, BJ. I'm so glad you made it through. And this is, your story is why we do this. It's great stuff. Hey, listen, if there was a couple of things that you wanted to pass on before we wrap the show, what would those things be?
My biggest thing is, and I'm going to get a little controversial now, so feel free to edit this. We pass along a couple things like meeting makers make it. I mean, do it, but remember, work the steps too, because meeting makers make meetings. The second thing is something that saved my bacon is they say, you got to give it away to keep it. And I don't believe that at all. I believe you have to give it away to get it. And that's huge for me. I mean, if I don't give it away, I don't get any relief. That's all I've been looking for. I've been a relief-seeking missile my whole life. Working with others, it gives me the relief. When everything else fails, it gives me the relief. So instead of picking up a drink or a shotgun, call a new guy. If that doesn't work for you, then you're just an alien or something, and you're just not from this planet, because it works for all of us. So please pick up some newcomers' numbers and call them when you're feeling like crap. And it works every time, man. It still works. 8 years, it still works.
Fantastic. Well, BJ, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your experience, strength, and hope. You're going to help a lot of people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to BJ for stopping by. And thanks to you, listeners, for your support. If you want to find us online, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Daily Reflection Podcast. You can find us on Twitter @Daily Reflector. If you want to read about recovery, you can find our blog at blog.dailyreflectionpodcast.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.